Ay caramba, Manchester United might be signing a goalkeeper. Samuel, you did the story earlier this week that they are interested in Bart Verbruggen. I'll be honest, it's not a name I've come across, but it's not one I'm going to forget either. Now you've brought it to my attention. 20-year-old goalkeeper, so one for the future, we would think. Fill us in basically on what we know for anyone that might not read of the story or wants to hear you talk about it as well.
I'd literally never heard of him when his name was mentioned to me. I even had to check. He was the Anderlecht goalkeeper that a source had told me that United are interested in the Anderlecht goalkeeper, and immediately you obviously look at who's been playing for Anderlecht this season, and it was unclear who that goalkeeper was, because looking at their fixtures, it's felt like certainly up to a point it was quite even between one goalkeeper and another that was starting the games. I think the other guy was I am definitely googling his name now, but it was Hendrik van Krombrugge. He's 30 and Belgian. Bart Verbruggen is 20 and Dutch. So even if I didn't see clarity on the name of the goalkeeper, I think I'd have been able to make an educated guess and got it right that it was Bart Verbruggen. So I think it's an interesting approach from United, because it's the kind of goalkeeper that you could see them going for in a market where nobody is expecting them to go for an established goalkeeper. And in the case of Verbruggen, he's quite prodigious in that he made his debut under Vincent Kompany, and in Belgium they have this weird playoff system, don't they, to win the title? And I think he played in a playoff against Club Brugge, as Louis van Gaal would call them. Everyone calls them Club Bruges, but that's the appropriate pronunciation apparently. And he made his debut in that 2 years ago, which in Belgium I'm sure would have been pretty eye-catching. Recently he's got some recognition at international level in that he got his first call up to the Netherlands squad for the March internationals. He was on the bench against Gibraltar, so he's on an upward curve at the moment. And as I said, because of Ten Hag's predilection for Dutch players or players who've been educated or come through the Dutch system, it does make sense. The more I just looked into the goalkeeper and what he would mean in terms of United's recruitment strategy, it kind of ticks a lot of boxes there. They certainly need someone to be a credible competitor with De Gea next season, because as we said, it still feels like a fait accompli that De Gea is going to stay on at United beyond this season, even though from what I've been told, that United are pretty much planning to phase him out, which is a strange situation given that technically he is out of contract in about 6 or 7 weeks or something like that. So the logical solution would be just to release him at that point, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that. And they've got a 26-year-old England international still on their books, and they've got Tom Heaton, who's 36 or 37, but unfortunately since he came back to United he's had a couple of injuries that have gone under the radar, and they've kept him out for quite a while, and he's been out for, it feels like, the best part of 2 months now, which is not good timing, because I think that there would be there'd probably be louder calls for him to come in for De Gea if he was available, rather than Jack Butland, even though Butland's a younger goalkeeper. Ultimately with Butland, are you really going to put in someone who's been third choice goalkeeper at Crystal Palace for a few years and is a loanee when you've got an FA Cup final in 3 weeks? Probably not. I think if Butland or Heaton are to have a role in the FA Cup final, it would be coming on with penalties looming, possibly. I think that is something that United have definitely got to give consideration to. I mean, you were saying during the shootout or just before it, we were obviously looking at what United's shootout record was, and I think when Brighton were putting all those penalties past De Gea, you said that De Gea had conceded his last
I think it was 17 in a row in shootouts, yeah, with the Villarreal.
It's probably 21, isn't it, if you include Russia against Spain at the 2018 World Cup. I think they at least scored 4 goals, Russia, maybe 5, but he got a bit of flack. Well, not a bit, he got quite a lot of flack for his porousness in that shootout in Spain, because there were certainly 1 or 2 he should have stopped, and it's not a, it was no surprise whatsoever that the run of conversions ended with Solly March hitting a conversion in rugby terms and skying his penalty. So the goalkeeping situation at United, it's so weird in that you have got technically 3 goalkeepers out of contract. I mean, should we mention not Nick Pope, Nathan Bishop? Don't know why Nick Pope came to mind there. But Nathan Bishop, who, as I've said before, you've played at Old Trafford as many times, if not more times, than he has in goal. And this is someone that United paid about £1.5 million for to Southend over 3 years ago, and they must have done that knowing that he had no chance whatsoever of playing, and he's had a new contract since then. And I just don't understand that that strategy. I don't see why a youth team goalkeeper can't be the extra goalie in training rather than having to shell out, as I said, £1.5 million. And in terms of the wages he's added on top of that as well, the total investment is probably £2 million. And I'm not saying that's, I mean, essentially that is a drop in the ocean for United, but still, why pay the money there? So I look forward to if United do have the gall to announce on their website that Nathan Bishop extends his contract, because I can't imagine that's going to go down too well with the support base. And they've also got to navigate how they go about announcing De Gea's extension, because unfortunately for him, although he's not actually had that bad a season, he has certainly had a bad month.
Bad few weeks, yeah, definitely. And I mean, the goalkeeping situation is interesting. Like you say, they're 7 weeks away from basically all the goalkeepers leaving that have been there this season. They've got Bishop, who's 23. Henderson's coming back. Mate Kovar as well, who's 22, I think, and by all accounts has had a good season on loan at Sparta Prague. I'm not going to pretend I've been watching his games on Wyscout, but the reports seem to have been reasonably good. I mean, the interest in Verbruggen hints at a succession plan at least for De Gea, but we don't know what's going to happen with Tom Heaton and whether he'll stay on. But the idea of having Verbruggen, Kovar at 22, Bishop at 23, Henderson at 26, De Gea, Heaton. I mean, there's some of these goalkeepers have got to go, haven't they? Really, it just seems there's too many there. Kovar and Bishop are clearly not under 21 goalkeepers now. They're either third choice or one of them goes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, even Kovar, who I suppose if I was to mention his name at a press conference to Ten Hag and Neil, our esteemed colleague, was sat behind me, you'd probably see him saying to a colleague, who? As if say, who the hell is that? Because why would he have heard of Mate Kovar? And I'm not saying everyone should have heard of him either, but I think he first started training, the first time he trained with the first team was about 5 years ago. So he's been known to a lot of United fans for half a decade, which feels pretty crazy, really, because again, I don't think anybody has ever looked at him as someone who has got a realistic chance of ever playing for United. He might have been on the bench once or twice. I mean, I certainly can't recall those games, but he's obviously been the third goalkeeper on match day who's involved in the warm-up, and that's the closest he's got to participating in a game at Old Trafford. But credit to him in that he's gone back to Czech Republic. He's gone to possibly the biggest club in the Czech Republic as well, and he's playing a lot of games. As you said, I mean, I've not seen a single second of what he's been up to out there in for Sparta Prague, but I suppose the fact that he's had some form of international recognition as well is only positive for him. And was it Cheltenham? I think he was due to join earlier last summer, and then that collapsed or something or other. There were a couple of loan deals for keepers. I think Bishop was another one that fell through for whatever reason. And it was only because there was an extension for the transfer window with Czech Republic teams that Kovar was actually able to go out on loan, because the intention was originally for him to go to a Football League club. And I think from memory it was Cheltenham, but in the end it didn't happen, and he's got exposure back in his homeland. And I suppose, given that he's doing well, you would just say that try and get a good price for him. Whether Sparta Prague have the money or not, I don't know, but you'd think that he's turning heads elsewhere across the continent, and where he's so far down the pecking order at United, it's just logical to cash in. I don't think it's a cynical thing to say that they've got to look at the academy as more of a cash cow than they have in recent years. I mean, even in 2016, this is absolute small fry, but they got about £6 million for Paddy McNair, which I thought was really good going, because McNair was never ever good enough to play for United. He only played for United under Louis van Gaal because he was right-footed, and Van Gaal was obsessed about having right-footed, left-footed centre-backs, and United's defence was dreadful, and Chris Smalling and Phil Jones or Johnny Evans, they were so prone to injury that he obviously had to look to the academy, and that's why Tyler Blackett got a look in when he should never have had a look in either. And McNair was actually a midfielder, but Van Gaal made a defender out of him, and in his first couple of games he did pretty well, and the exposure that he had at United turned him from, I don't know, someone who was probably slated to be released at the end of the 2014-15 season, someone who they got £5 or £6 million for. About, I think it was just over a year after he'd signed a contract with United. So they've got to do that more often now, and there are certainly more senior candidates that they could get money for in the summer. I have no idea at this stage the certainty, but Henderson, McTominay, Elanga, they are three players who you could all see being sold, whatever the circumstances, in the summer. And there's money to be made there and to be reinvested into the squad. So that's the ball's in United's court there. But they can't. I think Dishon Bernard, when he last went out on, not last went out on loan, but when he went on loan to Hull last season, he got a new contract, and I think it's quite a long deal as well, and he's a 22-year-old. There has to come a point where you get money in for these players, and you keep on kicking the can down the road. And in the case of Bernard, I think he was injured earlier in the season. That's why his development plateaued and why he had to drop down a league to go to Portsmouth on loan. But you've got to strike while the iron is hot, and the iron wasn't particularly hot with McNair, but he'd been present enough in that squad under Van Gaal that they were able to get money from Sunderland, and they've got to do that with other players as well. And look, Kovar's, it's difficult as a goalkeeper coming through the United academy to go out there and have a really good career, because it's almost impossible to become the United number one as an academy player. But he's gone back to the Czech Republic and he's getting the exposure that not many might have expected him to get, and now it's time to, as I say, strike while the iron is hot. Look at Henderson. His development was on an upward curve. He went back to United, and that's when the line started to flatten.